What's up guys, back with another Twinmotion tutorial. I'm going to show you how I created this isometric 3D scene using Twinmotion. Let's get right into the video. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to start hiding some of our 3D model, in this case some of our walls, our windows, and also we want to look into hiding the top of our roof. So we can simply delete it, or if you want to keep the walls in your model just for later, if you want to make any adjustments later, we could just hide it with the eye icon here in our scene graph. So I'm gonna just click on that. As you can see, now we do not see that wall there. So you can just kind of start clicking on the portions where you want to hide, and let's kind of do that right now. So we're gonna hide this column here. I don't want to see the column, this one in particular. So we'll hide that. We can hide our bike, our helmet here. We do not want to see our windows, as well as these guys here. We can hide the top of our roof. So let me click on it. Okay. All right, so let's click on these guys as well. We hide these. I'm gonna hide that wall as well. And we also want to hide these picture frames here. See if we can click on these guys. Not exactly sure why it's hard to click on these, but it's all right, we'll figure it out. All right, so now that we have what we want to see in our isometric, we're going to start making some adjustments to our ground, and we're going to actually do the path tracer rendering as well, and I'm gonna show you some of those settings. So stick around to the end. Don't forget to hit that like button for me, hit the notification bell as well, and hopefully you'll learn something. All right, so now that we have our isometric scene kind of set up here, we got our walls hidden in our roof and all the other elements that we don't want to see in our isometric scene. Okay, so as you can see, we have our landscape here. We're going to hide that, and we're going to go to materials, and we're going to go to wall coverings, and we're going to change our landscape, at least the bottom portion of our scene in the viewport. So we're going to use matte painted wall. So now we have this kind of white canvas, kind of representing a canvas in a sense, and you can use different colors, you can use different type of textures. It just all depends on what you want your isometric scene to look like. So let's keep it white, keep it simple. And now that we have that, we are going to go to our eye icon up here, and we're gonna go to this 3D setup here, and we're gonna click on this guy here. All right, so now we are oriented not in the right direction of our 3D model. So you can hold shift and right click, and we're just gonna turn our model around, and it could be depending on what model you're in, it could turn the right way automatically. That has happened to me before. But in this case, we had to orient our model to see what we're looking at. All right, so this is looking pretty good. So now that we have it faced the correct way, let's go to media, and we're going to create our scene. So we're going to add our image here, and we're going to create that image. And as you know, you can go to the three dots and you can rename your scene, and we're going to call it, let's call it ISO render. Okay, so we have our setup, and now we're ready to dig into some of our settings, and let's try to see if we can make this isometric scene look really good. Guys, don't forget to smash that like button for me, hit the notification bell as well, and if you have any questions, don't be afraid to leave a comment down below. All right, so we're gonna go to our environment tab, and right now we have HDRI, which is cool, and then we have Sky Dome. So I'm going to keep that the same, but we are going to change our HDRI. So we're going to go to our three dots here, and we're going to look and see. Let's look and see which HDRI we want to use. So let's go to library, and let's see our options. Okay. Why is it taking me there? I don't want to go there. Okay, change it to our defaults. There it is. So the reason that was happening is because I already had it on a certain HDRI. All right, so now that we change it to our default, now we're in our HDRI library, and we're going to use, let's go to, okay, so now my scene is saving. So one of the things I do like to do is set my save settings to 15-minute increments, just to or intervals, just to make sure that whatever progress that we're making, that is being saved. So I would suggest that you do that as well. All right, so let's get back to it. So go to Studio, and we're gonna choose HDRI 27. So first off, I need to sign in because I'm not signed in. All right, so now I'm signed in. So we're gonna use Studio 27. All right. So I just dragged and dropped Studio 27 into our viewport, and as you can see, it did make some adjustments to our scene. Our scene looks a little different now, and that's okay because we're going to start making some more adjustments as we go further. And one of the things I like to do is turn on our path tracer early, just to kind of show you some of the progression that we're making with a lot of the adjustments to our settings. So hopefully that helps. And let's go to render. Let's go to path tracer. Let's turn it on low for now. Okay, so you can see my scene at a low level is actually looking pretty good, but let's see if we can actually enhance our 3D scene even more. All right, so let's go back to our environment and let's start making some adjustments. So instead of 1, we're gonna do 2, and we have our rotation, and right now you don't see any shadows, so let's try to see if we can make some adjustments to our model. One thing I would like to do first actually is one thing that I forgot. Let's stop our path tracer and let's click on our starting ground. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually use our starting ground and lower it just a little bit so it can so it can look like we can show some shadows. So if you lower it just a little bit. Okay. All right, so you'll be able to see the difference when we do and activate our path tracer. So as you can see, it gave it that hovering effect where you can see some shadows, and I think that looks pretty cool. So that's one of the things that you can do to kind of give this floating effect to your isometric, just to kind of give it some character. All right, so let's go back. Okay, let's continue to make some adjustments here. All right, so I believe we have done everything in our environment. We're gonna keep our match HDRI checked. Let's go to camera. All right, so in our camera settings, let's see about changing our exposure. Let's do 0.80. Kind of make it a little bit of dark, not too light. We're gonna change our white balance to about 4998. And let's change our tint to a negative 0.07. And let's look at our local exposure and see what we're looking for. So our highlights, we can adjust that to 1.00. And if you kind of see the highlights, it just kind of make things a little darker. So we're gonna do 0.80. And for our shadows, is at 0.88. As you can see, it kind of, if you were to lower your shadows, it makes our scene look too bright and a little whitewashed. So we don't want that. So let's make this 0.55. And let's go down. All right, so in our details, we have our vignetting. And I want to make this scene a little darker, just to kind of give a little bit of the shadows. So some areas where it should be dark in the actual scene itself, that's kind of what I'm trying to replicate. So I don't want the scene to be all around very bright. So with vignetting, we can make that adjustment to make it darker. So for my vignetting, I would like to change that to 65%, and we're gonna up the sharpness. Let's say we're gonna up our sharpness about 20. No, that's too high. Let's do 5%. Very low on this one. Okay, so we do not need to check mark our parallelism just because we're doing an isometric 3D isometric view. So we do not need to check parallelism, and we can look at our other settings to see if there's anything else that we want to use for the camera settings. And I believe that this is good so far. Guys, don't forget to hit that like button for me and also hit that notification bell. All right, so now we're in our rendering. So let's up our rendering quality just a little bit. So I'm gonna up it to 1024. And we're gonna change our max bounce to 30. We're gonna leave emissive materials checked and denoiser checked. And we will change our fireflies to 8.0. So you're starting to see that our isometric rendering scene is starting to look pretty good, but we're not finished yet. So we're gonna go into our FX and we're gonna make some adjustments to our contrast, our saturation, and we're gonna actually add a color gradient and a filter on this one. So this is kind of the process that I use to create my isometric scenes, and they come out pretty good. All right, so for the contrast, let's change that to 45. Saturation, let's look at maybe 50%. And our color gradient, I want to say you have different options as usual. So you can pick any color gradient that you feel is fit or is best for your 3D scene. In particular for this one, the one that I like to use very often in a lot of my renderings, I would like to use Fuji. So let's see if we can find Fuji. So we're gonna scroll down. There was a lot of good choices with this isometric scene, but ultimately I end up choosing Fuji. So Fuji kind of gave it, it kept the darks, the shadows, and it still created a very nice look and pretty much what I was looking for far as the design wise for this isometric scene. So I think that particular color gradient really brought out the isometric scene. Okay, so now we're gonna go to filter, and I usually add light, line light, just to kind of help sharpen my image a little more. And so for my original rendering, I did go up to 3000. So in the samples per pixel. So we can do 3000. And for our image, right now it's at full HD at 2K. You can bring it up to 4K or 8K, and we can do 4K for now. And if you were to go any higher, a lot of times it would prompt you to check tiled rendering. So I'll show you that real quick. So if you do 8K, it says use file render for higher resolutions. So a lot of times if I am going to export something out 8K to 16K or higher resolution images, you can click on the tiled rendering, and that will make sure that it exports at a higher resolution images up to 64K and at a lower GPU cost. So keep that in mind. And guys, that's it. And I hope that you learned something. Don't forget to smash that like button for me, hit the notification bell, and we'll be back with another one.